like to invite Jelani Clark, Chief Business Development Officer at Aminochain. Please give him a hand of applause.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me. Thanks to the Eastside School folks. It's great to see everyone here. So as Justin said, my name is Jelani. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer at Aminochain, and I'm going to talk to you about the Aminochain project. So Aminochain, which is more of an enterprise-facing application of DeSci, is focused on re-enhancing or re-establishing trust in science and healthcare through the development of the world's first globally integrated decentralized biobanking network. Now, one of the questions I usually get is, what is a biobank and why are we particularly focused on it? And the reason for this is that biobanks in general are a very interesting institution that sits at a very unique intersection between research and development, informatics, and clinical care that positions them really as a cornerstone for the development of biomedical innovation. They are super interesting they're super interesting institutions that have exploded in interest over the last 50 or so years. We've seen an exponential increase in the output, popularity, and development coming out of biobanks since 1982. And so this positions them really interestingly at the interface between human-based applications and biomedical innovation. Now, despite this, biobanks actually suffer from a variety of different challenges that actually limit the amount of maximally extractable value coming out of these institutions. One of these problems is the fact that, for most cases, biobanks are unsustainable business models. And this is due to the fact that between 10 to 15% or biobanks leverage 10 to 15% of the inventory that they generate. So biobanks essentially are institutions that house basic human biomedical samples. And this is basically because it's very difficult to, or in most jurisdictions, it's illegal to test on human samples. And so the best way to get around this, or to deal with this, is to deal with human-derived assets and or donated samples. And so these are things like if you go to a hospital and you give a blood sample, if you're a cancer patient and you have to donate something, these get housed in biobanks. Now the problem here is that most of these samples don't actually get leveraged, and so biobanks are unsustainable business models currently. And so a good example of this is that in a biobank that houses maybe 50,000 samples, these are usually sitting on $40 million of sunken costs by virtue of the fact that they don't leverage their assets in the bank. And a good example of this is if you extrapolate this to the United States, this leads to about a $160 billion deficit in sunken costs of donated human materials that are not being leveraged in the United States alone. This is a multi-billion dollar, nearly $1 trillion issue affecting global economics, biobanking, medical economics around the world. The second major issue in biobanking is something to do with the lack of, or more so with the quality of the samples, and particularly around diversity of samples. So anybody in science, I'm sure, has heard about this, but we have a huge issue in science where the vast majority of human libraries are overrepresented by European genetics. So what this means is, this is a huge problem. What this actually means is the therapies, so the studies that we do, so given the fact that most of the samples are of European genetics, the studies that we do are specifically on diseases that predominantly affect European genetics, and therefore we develop therapies that are optimized for Europeans at the detriment of other ethnic groups. Now this is a multifactorial issue, but one of the reasons that we know affects this is user experience in the process of donating samples. So today, if you were to go to a hospital, if you're a cancer patient and you want to donate, your user experience is the following. You'll speak to your primary healthcare professional and they'll sign the document, which is an informed consent document, which will basically waive your rights to any of the positive upside coming from your samples that will then be leveraged downstream. And so how this works is, in this little schematic, you'll sign this document and you'll donate your sample. Your sample will then go into a black box network of scientists, researchers, and pharma, which will generate all the scientific upside and the financial upside based off your sample, and very little, if any of that, will be returned to you as a patient. So what this means is that there are currently no real incentive frameworks for people to engage in the process of donating samples in the biomedical space. And this gets particularly exacerbated with the fact that usually this affects minority groups and patients of color more so than others. And this is what leads to frameworks like overrepresented of certain genomic backgrounds. And so the current state of affairs for the biomedical biobanking space is that we have millions and millions of samples relegated all over the world, locked up, difficult to access, and they also represent only a small portion of the human population. And so how are we going to fix this? One of the solutions that we've come to is known as decentralized biobanking. And what this is essentially a biobank or any relevant institution, a clinical site, a hospital, will download what is known as the Aminochain. And this is a software package that it contains a variety of different things that includes a blockchain, an abstracted blockchain wallet. What this does is connect this biobank and their inventory with any of the other biobanks in the network, inclusive to pharma providers and procurers, and also other DSI projects. What this will allow is for a biobank to open up its inventory to a network of collaborators that may want to leverage these assets for monetary or scientific innovation. The cool thing that this also does is it allows patients to actually track their samples within an interconnected network of patient and third-party users. So contrary to what was happening before, an individual can donate their sample and can track where it goes. They can earn royalties if their assets are commercialized. And they can also stay involved in translational research if that should be possible. So enrollment into clinical trials, return of incidental findings. All of this is possible once you create a globally interconnected network of healthcare and institutional providers. And so this is a demo. That should be a video, no? That guy ran away. Just act it up, okay. Well, I'm gonna go back here. So what this was supposed to be is a demo of the platform. So essentially what you would have here is the way the Aminochain network, the Aminochain node works, is it integrates with all the data capture. So we heard from Hippocrates that you have multiple data sources that exist in the biomedical space. You have EHRs, you have lab inventory management system, you have all these different data capture units that select and characterize the data for a particular sample. No? Cool. So what the Aminochain does, and you gotta love live demos, what the Aminochain does is it integrates with all these different data captures and it allows for these to be openly broadcasted. So if I'm a pharma provider, if I'm somebody looking to source particular samples, let's say of Asian demographic, or tall people, or small people, or gingers, you can find these as in an easily accessible specimen center. You can think of it kind of like the Amazon for biosamples. And so it makes it really easy for participants to find their samples. And as well as in the demo, there was a demo interface of what it would look like as a tissue provider tracking your samples around the world. So since we don't have a demo, I'll skip right to this. So there are multiple applications that the Aminochain node can be used for. First and foremost, I just want to say it's not a blockchain node. It is more like a chain link oracle. And so we have a larger protocolized view where our goal is to create a circular biomedical value economy with killer applications. And these include things like donor royalty payment solutions, leveraging a variety of different blockchains, Solana, Monad, Somnia. Provenance interfaces, and these are interfaces that allow patients to track their samples in a variety of different components with a variety of different solutions. We're really excited about the application of ZK technology. Privacy preservation is a huge thing when it comes to dealing with biomedical assets, and we hope, or we think, or we're interested in developing bridges that allow an individual to source a sample, or an institution to source a sample, do all the relevant statistical analyses and developmental innovation, but also be able to connect back to patients if they need to enroll in a clinical trial. Currently, that is not possible with Web 2 frameworks, but with ZK and certain Web 3 ones, this is possible. And then we're currently working with both Web 2 and some Web 3 based DSI projects to develop some of these other platforms. And so in terms of traction, the network is steadily growing. We have 8 major biobanks and clusters online, which probably more closer to 700,000 samples at this point, but this slide's a little bit old. And we're servicing 192 pharma procurers and different forms of academic procurers, like household names Johnson & Johnson, Roche, Merck, Vertex, that are all leveraging this network to buy samples from a variety from around the world, like never before. Also to add that we have a pipeline of about 220 biobanks that are eager to join the network. And so we've since started to expand the team. So the original team are Casper, Max, myself, and Yuri. And we've most recently hired Tiffany, Daniel, and Andrew to help service these 200 and some odd biobanks. So what you can think of Aminochain as is the enterprise-facing application that both B-side and non-B-side based applications can plug into to streamline innovation and development in the biomedical space. So thank you, and you can reach out to me here if you have any questions.